Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Retail Insider. Joining me today is Craig Patterson, CEO and publisher of Retail Insider. In other words, my boss. Thanks for joining us today, Craig.
Hey, Mario, how's it going?
Good. Well, we're going to talk about an interesting topic right now, and it's kind of looking at the relationship of the media with communications people, PR agencies, and the like. And just overall, first of all, Craig, as as publisher and of Retail Insider, what have your impressions been in the last, say, year or two of the relationship between the two entities?
That's actually a good question because it's certainly been mixed, and I think it's been that way. Certainly, I'd say even longer term than just say 12 months. But the relationship is interesting because in some cases we have less information than we did in the past because of the pandemic. People aren't out as much. We're receiving information from public relations and communications firms that in some cases will be useful for some editorial that we have, and in many cases not. It just really depends on what they've got. I have actually discussed this with a few senior executives in PR firms, and what I thought was really interesting is the feedback that I got too was that in some cases they're unhappy with us. So it's a two-way street, which I think almost is something where we should have a panel discussion at some point with a group of communications people and us, perhaps. I don't know. That might be the next one of these.
Well, you know what, though, the bottom line is that these companies, these retailers, through their communications staff or through agencies, are looking to get their story out. That's the bottom line. Retail Insider, as a media publication, is looking for stories. So kind of meshing those two together, the question is, as a publication, what are you looking for in stories when a company pitches you for a story? Like, what are the key things that you're looking for?
Well, the first thing is that it's relevant and that hopefully maybe the message is actually clear enough for me to understand quickly that this is something that's important. I work with pitches, so does Dustin, of course. I mean, we all do, but Dustin's my co-editor in chief with Retail Insider currently. And we do go through pitches, but in some cases it can be complicated to determine what is relevant. And in some cases, I mean, we get, as communications firms, say from the United States, that have done zero research on us. They're sending us stuff that's completely irrelevant. Not to start complaining, but getting irrelevant pitches really annoys me, especially when the public relations person follows up and has an expectation that we're going to report on something which is completely irrelevant. I used to actually get quite angry. That's one of the reasons I have a co-editor in chief, was I started getting too angry at this, and I had to learn how to control my own emotions because I would start emailing and getting a little snippy with people, and that probably wasn't fair to them.
Well, and it's an interesting point, right? Because I'm the same way. I get, I don't know, over 100 emails a day, right? And it's the same thing. I get stuff from the States, from people. I'm going like, why do I care that a retail store is opening in Tallahassee or whatever, right? And things like that. But the other thing is just, I think the communications companies and people in that field have to really think more clearly and about the pitches that they make to the media. And I'm glad you used the word relevant, because you're a big retailer and you're donating $10,000 to the children's hospital. Well, yeah, why would I care? Sorry to be so crass, but like, why would I care? But more importantly, why would readers care? And I think that's the bottom line, isn't it? Like, we're looking for stories that are going to be of appeal to a larger audience, right?
I think it's complicated because we get a lot of emails, especially well, maybe not even just recently, but a lot of companies donating money. The latest thing in vogue is Ukraine. Companies are donating money, which is great. I mean, I'm super happy this is happening. I'm a huge fan of charity, but I'm also a fan of quiet charity. I mean, I donate money to things, and you don't see me going out and doing press releases and saying I just donated money to UNICEF or something. That's actually not one of them. Probably should be. Do they still exist? But I used to have those boxes. But I mean, I've always looked at charity as being something that was a little bit quiet. I mean, it's something you might get a tax write-off. You just do something that, and it's not that I'm unhappy that we get pitches from companies donating money. It just seems a little tacky sometimes, especially if it's not, if it's something that I could afford to give, or if it's like $20,000 or something where, we've given scholarships. I start seeing that as almost tacky. And, you're coming to me saying, well, geez, right, you gave some money, and then you expect me to, kiss your butt because you gave some money, like, and because everybody's doing it. I mean, a lot of companies do charity. Most at this point do charity. I mean, the news story would be if they didn't.
Well, yeah. Years ago, when in my previous life at the Calgary Herald, one of the stints that I had was as an assignment editor, right? And the same thing, getting pitches like crazy all the time. But I had a group of communicators wanted to, take me out for a breakfast and chat about what I would be looking for as a story, right? And one of the things that I said to them, I said, you know what you're doing as a company could be great, and it's great internally, and you feel proud about it, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes you have to, take yourself away from that and ask yourself, if I wasn't working for this company in this role, would I, as a reader or a listener on radio and television, care? And would I be interested in it? And that kind of, in some ways, hit home for people, right? Because again, the bottom line is, who cares? Like, who's interested in this, right?
That's a really good point. And I'm assuming there's education for people in communications and public relations. I know there is. I don't have that education. I'd be curious what they're being taught. And I would love to have a contribution to that in terms of maybe teaching something relevant. I think, Mario, you would feel the same way, because we get a lot of irrelevant pitches. And ultimately, like you just said, it has to be something that we find interesting, hopefully, or at least something that would be interesting to readers, that would be of some sort of relevance. And I started feeling like we were getting pitches from one, I won't say the name of the retailer, but it's a large retailer that came into the Canadian market a number of years ago, that was doing pop-ups in parts of its stores. And I just expected us to just report on every stupid pop-up that it did. And some of these were brands that I'd never heard of, and I honestly didn't care. And I got angry, and I said, look, we've had a good relationship for a long time, but I don't want to report on every damn little brand that you put into your pop-up spaces, because it's not interesting to readers, and it's annoying to me to keep getting these messages and then get the follow-ups because we're not kissing your butt and reporting on it. I mean, the expectations that we see from some of these firms for us to report on their stuff, they come back and they say, when are we going to see this going online? And it's like they're trying to own us, and that makes me furious sometimes. And
yeah, I think you raise a great point there, right? Because that's the point, is that the media is not an extension of your company's marketing and communications.
You can pay us to do it, yeah.
And that's, well, yeah, and that's the thing that I always tell people as well. Well, there's a solution to certain things. If you want a certain story done and you want it done a certain way, etc., then you pay for it, right? Every media outlet out there has that avenue of paid sponsored content. I wanted to ask you about a couple of things that I've been seeing lately, and yeah, you're talking about things that drive you nuts. These are the things that are driving me crazy lately. And again, the bottom line and the goal is to get your story in a publication. So these are the types of things you shouldn't be doing. Number one, which is driving me nuts, is how many times people want questions in advance. What are you going to ask Craig Patterson, the CEO of Retail Insider? I understand, that people want to be prepared, right? And it's kind of funny because you get a press release about something, and can we see your questions in advance? Yeah, the questions is about your press release. Right. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to ask you, do you think Justin Trudeau's an idiot and should resign? So, but when they want to get really, really specific, that's I don't know. It doesn't facilitate the story being done, right?
I know. And my thought is that some of the public relations people, they're afraid. I mean, dealing with people in PR in luxury retail, and this is something I do because luxury is kind of my beat, right? It's one of the areas of retail that I've embraced in terms of my knowledge and even as a consultant now. But so the people in communications and luxury retail have to be super hypersensitive. Everything in luxury is elevated. And that includes the communications, but it also makes it extremely annoying because some of the people that I've spoken to, they're barely human in the way they speak because they have to be so proper because, this particular brand they're working for wants them to be poised up, wearing a set of pearls if they're a woman, and usually communications people are female, not always, but, and it can get really, really frustrating. I said to one of them, for one of the biggest brands in the world, I said, I'll bet when you go home, feel really great to be able to talk like a normal human being again, right? Because certainly she wasn't speaking that way to me when I was talking to her. And it's just a lot of frustrations around the communications that we get, because we're also not dealing with people that can talk to us, I think, in an honest way in some cases. Now, one thing that sorry, this might actually go over time, I just realized, but one thing that we note is, and I just forgot what I was going to say. My apologies, but let's go on.
Well, let's, the other thing, and again, it comes back to this paid sponsored thing. One of the other things I've noticed a lot lately is expectation by some of them people that they see the story in advance before it's published. That's one thing. And then the other one is, and we won't get into it, but we had a case recently where, a story appears, but then they start wanting to make changes to the story, right? Nothing, nothing factually wrong in a story, but they want to make changes. So I'm seeing a lot of that lately on both sides. How about yourself, Greg?
Yeah, and well, actually, yes, I would say so, or at least maybe it's being brought more to my attention. Again, I'm not taking care of all the pitches, but certainly quite a few of them, or at least I see them coming through. And I've been doing this for 10 years. Retail Insider is now 10 years old. We actually it's a few days over our 10-year anniversary. We'll be formally celebrating it with the magazine launch, but that is what it is. So I've been doing this for a while, but it does almost seem to be getting a little bit worse. Like, I don't know if there's a sense of entitlement, and I don't want to, that's not a good term to use, because I know that people in media, they may have a quota, they've got expectations, they've got things that their bosses expect them, that their brands expect them to do, and they're walking on eggshells sometimes. I know it's scary for PR people because they do feel like they're walking on eggshells. They're afraid that their client's going to fire them, or they're going to get fired from their boss because they did something wrong. But regardless, I mean, asking to see the questions in advance, you said first, and now to actually see the draft in advance, this is a news story. What the hell? Like, does the Globe and Mail and National Post, do they give their stories over to a brand to have a look at before you report? Absolutely not. Who do they think they are, and who do they think we are? Anyway, so sorry, I'm getting passionate about it, but I'm just floored when I hear things like this, where some PR person, I think they were an intern, said to you, "We look forward to seeing your draft in advance."
Yeah,
I was ready to wring this person's neck. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely floored.
And I was actually floored too, because it was a very, it was a matter of fact thing, is that they expected it, right? And and the first thing I thought was, my gosh, what are they teaching these people, in universities or colleges where communications programs are in place, right? And, never in a million years, would you have thought 10 years ago or 20 years ago, as a PR person, to tell, to ask, what Mario Toneguzzi at the Calgary Herald, can I see your story in advance before it's published? No, no, you can't. You're paying for it. Yeah, sure. But of course, and then you got all the approvals and all that to take place. But a news story, no. It
And
makes
that is
sense.
one thing to note. That is one thing to note. I mean, if people are watching this, and we do sponsored content, clients do get to review it, whatnot.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, if it's an actual news story, or if it's something that is earned media, I mean, the conversation around earned media versus paid media is an interesting one, because the lines in some cases seem to be a little bit blurred. Like, I'm actually going to be writing something which is a little bit earned, but it's a segue into a paid media partnership with a major company based in Canada. I won't say the name because it'll be under negotiation next week, but nevertheless, that conversation's there. With paid, that's fine, but with earned media, really, in theory, they should never be reviewing this. And in terms of questions in advance, well, I'll be 100% honest here, Mario. On purpose, and I do this quite a bit because I go on camera, I didn't actually know what our conversation was going to be about today. I thought it was probably about communications and public relations, but I didn't know, because I like that adventure. And I like to go in and talk about things. And sometimes I don't know what I'm going to go in and talk about. And I sometimes do it on purpose.
Yeah.
In this case, I was just really busy. It's almost Easter. So I been doing a lot of stuff here.
So, the thing is, the last thing I wanted to bring up is accessibility. And again, these are the kind of points that to help companies, to help communications people understand, how you can facilitate, a conversation and a relationship with media outlets like Retail Insider in a better way. And accessibility is the other one that drives all media people nuts, right? You put out a press release, then you want to get in touch with somebody that is quoted in the press release, and they're not available. And usually they're not available until whatever, or they're not available at all, but we can give you Joe Blow. Right, like we can give you the direct
written questions. Well, which actually is bad, but yeah,
or written or email questions. So I think, from our standpoint and from mine personally, I'd like to see more accessibility and in a timely fashion, especially when there's news releases come out, or you're actually directly pitching myself or Craig Patterson or Dustin Foos at Retail Insider.
I agree completely. And actually, Mario, how we met was I was pitching you when you were at the Calgary Herald. I was at the University of Alberta, and I was pitching research that I was doing there. I might be doing some more, apparently. We got a board meeting next week where that's still a going concern with the Center of Cities and Communities. That's a whole other conversation. Per the School of Retail, things are still happening. But in terms of access, I was always available. Like what I was doing with the study, my expectation would be if you or any other journalist, because my goal, and I mean, I don't have a communications background, but obviously I pitched things as someone would in that industry. I sure as hell made sure that I was available for anybody that wanted any questions, and I was going to be there in a split second, because I wanted to get that message out, and that was really important. A lot of brands are not doing this, especially big ones that have news stories. They're not making their people as accessible as they should be, as you know. Now, granted, some won't ever do it, and some of them, at the odd time, I'll understand. Some luxury brands, Amazon used to be like that. We actually managed to secure. So sorry about the lights here, by the way. They're flashing on. Something's going to burn out, and I'm going to have to fix it. And this is going to start. I'm going to have a seizure if this keeps happening here. Actually, maybe we should wrap this up, or I got to get up there and get this light bulb fixed. But this is so crazy. But no, in terms of access, I think this is something incredibly important that should not be rocket science at all. And really, at some point, I think that there's a real broken relationship between journalists, and the media and communications people that have clients. And at some point there needs to be some sort of roundtable discussion or something, a meeting of the heads, because we're all people, and we obviously are going to have more in common than not. And it's just complicated, because the world is interesting right now, and I think the world of communications and media is, the relationship's probably broken and needs to be fixed.
All right, super. Thanks, Craig, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mario. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Craig Patterson, CEO and publisher of Retail Insider. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.